Okay, good afternoon, um, Plainfield, and my online class. I plan on sending a copy of this out to my online class too. Today's a snow day, so we are broadcasting from Hooterville, Indiana, also known as Fortville. And this is kind of going to be maybe touch and go because my junior in high school's got an E-Day and she's online. My wife's teaching her math class and she's online video. So we have a little dish in our yard so far out in the country that we don't have any real super duper internet connectivity. I'm hoping that this holds out for me to get through. But if not, then I will yield to those two ladies and let them get their stuff done. And I'll reattempt to record this if I don't have any participants show up. Okay, so today we are covering chapters 3, 4, and 5, which is the SIPOC, the value stream, and the 7 wastes. So let's go ahead and get started. We're out at Six Sigma, and I'm in the presentation portion. And of course, the gentleman who wrote this course and who's president of Six Sigma will do it much better than I do. But I noticed that 4 of my students still haven't got access to Six Sigma online, and 3 in my Plainfield class still haven't got access. So I wanted to show them what they should be looking for. After we get through the presentations, I want to go back through the steps on how to order your code. And then I'm going to send a note to the bookstore saying these 8 people still don't have their access codes, and see if the bookstore manager can help get us involved in solving that. I know 3 of my students are high school students with Chromebooks, and that we have to go through a different process to get you access using that Chromebook. But maybe you could use your phone or a home computer until we get that process resolved. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on with DMAC. So this is basically saying that there are steps in problem solving, and this is how Six Sigma puts them in this framework, and it's called a DMAC. And so what does that stand for? Well, we got define. You got to define the problem, and believe it or not, this is where most projects and most problem solving, the big error occurs. You think you know what the problem is, and so you go out to solve, world peace and all that kind of stuff, but you don't do enough investigative research to determine what is the real problem. So you have to ask the who, what, where, when, and why question to what the problem is to come up with different types of scenarios that would really identify what the root cause is. And we'll talk about that in a future meeting about determining root causes. But a quick story about doing a problem like this in class. I had project management and strategic management as courses that I taught as a business instructor. It's probably 8, 9 years ago, maybe it's 10 years ago. And the parking for downtown in the Lawrence campus isn't what it is today. So we had people that were showing up for class late, 15, 20 minutes, and it seemed to be different people every week. And so the third week I said, hey, this is what we're going to do our project on. We're going to find out why people are late for class. And so let's just take a minute to brainstorm it. And if I had live people on here, I'd ask you, why do you think people are late for class? But the students were pretty harsh. And I'm writing down on the whiteboard all the responses I'm getting. People are shouting out their different responses. So one student said, well, they're oversleeping and they don't leave their home in time. Another one said, well, they got held up at work. Another one said their daycare for their children or their child care fell through and they had to find somebody else to take care of them. And another one said they had transportation issues. Their car wouldn't start, or like today, they couldn't get out of the driveway. And so there's this long list of different reasons that the students thought the problem was. And so we did this right as class started. And so people started coming in later and they weren't part of that discussion. And so about 15 minutes in the class, I said, hey, earlier we had a discussion on why students may be late for class. And since we had a couple of you that experienced that today, we want to ask you to share what was your day like? What happened to you today? And so there was like 4 of them, and to the number, all 4 of them said, I could not find a parking spot. I've been here since 10 minutes before class. It took me 25 minutes to find a parking spot, and I had to keep driving around until I found a spot. And that's what all 4 of those students said. And so other students had been late that had gave these, their car blew up and they were just overslept. They said, yeah, that was the reason I had too. I thought I was the only one that couldn't find a parking spot. And so we were able to define what the true problem was, is there was no parking spots for the people to get into the building on time. So let's go on to the next step in this, and it's measure. So I said, well, we got to come up with a way to get the details so we can figure out if this is a true problem or it's maybe something else. And so we went outside, and this was when we were downtown. I had this class downtown. I also did this at Lawrence, but we went outside and I took a fourth of the class. I said, you guys go north. Fourth of the class went south, east, and west. So I want you to walk about 5 blocks out. I want you to count every parking spot. And so this took about 30 minutes, and we came back in. They had their pencil and paper and write down all the numbers as they went. And they came back in, and each team, the north team, south, west, east, gave us the number of parking spots that they found. And it come out to about 300. And so I said, okay, that's one thing that we could measure. We're starting off, we got 300 parking spots. And so I said, well, we need to figure out how many people are in class when you're in class. So I'm going to ask the registrar, and I'm going to do that part of the research for you and find out how many students are enrolled. And this was a Tuesday class, and it was 11 to 2. And so people that were coming in at like 10 were still in class until 12. And people that were coming in at, I'm going to let somebody come in that just says iPhone. And people that were coming in a class at say 11:30 or 12 also needed parking spots. And so the information I got from the registrar's office was there was 850 students on campus at the time that our class was taking place. So there's 800 students and there's 400 parking spots. And so they either got a carpool, or they're parking way far away and walking in, or they're parking illegally in somebody's yard or something, because there simply wasn't enough parking. And so we had these different measures. How many parking spots, how many students that needed parking spots, and the time frame on a Tuesday when that was an issue. So while I was at it, I asked the registrar's office to give me that information for every block for Monday through Friday. And what we went to the next step, which was analyze. And so when we analyzed the information we got for the number of parking spots, and we looked at the whole week, Monday through Friday, how many students were on campus during the 2-hour blocks for classes, and some of them were 2.5, 3 hours. And they found that the least amount of stress as far as the number of competing for parking spots was on Monday and Friday. So on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, there was twice as many students here as there were parking available. And from like 9 until 3 was the most hectic. So in the evenings, it wasn't that bad. And the 8 a.m. one wasn't that bad. But 9 to 3, it was just a monster to try to find a parking spot on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So we said, well, how can we come up with a suggestion to improve this? So we go to the next step. And whenever I've worked as a consultant, and whenever I've come up with these opportunities to improve the situation, you always have to offer the client or the person with the problem the least effort to fix it. You know, the no cost, something that costs no money. They don't have to build anything, they don't have to make anything. And so the first thing that we came up with is like, why not offer more classes on Monday and Friday and offer more classes after 3 o'clock and at 8 o'clock. So I took this information and I took the whole class. We went down to the dean's office, and the dean said, "Hey, well, this is great information. Let me get you a meeting with the president of the college." And so we got all dressed up. It was like in week 7 or 8. And this is back when we had 16-week classes, you know, a long time ago. And so we went in, and my students told the president of the college what they found in their problem analysis. And so the control feature, we hadn't came up with that yet because we really needed the support of the college on what were going to do to try to fix this. So they said, well, what do you have for solutions? And of course, you never bring a problem to someone unless you have some type of solution to ask for input. And so our first solution was this no dollar solution, and that was to change the scheduling. And so more people were on campus on Monday and Friday, and more people were coming in at 8 and coming in at 3 in the evening classes. And it says, we're going to do a test, and we're just going to try this out, say for the School of Business. We won't do it with health and nursing and machinist and math and English. We won't do it. We'll just use the School of Business. Since you folks are trying to work on this problem, we want you to be involved in the solution. So our next semester had the majority of the classes on Monday and Friday, in the evenings on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We offered less classes on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And so they ran the semester. So the control group was basically how many people are on campus during 9 to 3. That's what we're trying to resolve, is that parking issue. And what they found out was the number really didn't change for 9 to 3. That those classes we offered on Monday and Friday, and the classes that were in the evenings and in the mornings, nobody signed up for them. They didn't want them. And so we can't force people to come to class Friday night at 5 o'clock. Heck, instructors really don't want to teach Friday night at 5 o'clock. And so we came back with the results. It didn't take very long. It was like 2 or 3. Before, we had 2 weeks to register and everything. And so all of those classes that we had set up for the evening were canceled because nobody signed up for them. And the 8 a.m.s, there might have been 1 or 2 classes that ran at 8 o'clock. But nobody wanted Monday. There was maybe 1 class out of 10 that we had scheduled to go that had enough people that signed up that it went. And absolutely nobody wanted Friday. Nobody signed up. It was 0. So we brought that back. That information back to the dean, and we went to the president's office, and this was my second semester class. It's briefing what happened in the first semester. So I said, we got to come up with another alternative, because moving the schedule around to have less people here on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays didn't work. They still signed up for classes. They weren't in business and came to campus on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So there's still this 650 or 700 instead of 800, but it still wasn't getting the numbers down to where the parking would be more manageable. So we did some research, and we found out that there was like 2,400 parking spots available at the fairgrounds, which was a short commute. And we already had shuttle buses that took the mail and took office supplies and stuff to Lawrence and to other smaller campuses from downtown. So we had like 4 of those buses that had 16 seats in them. And so we made the suggestion that we get with the fairgrounds and use their parking spots, you know, when it's off event. We couldn't go over there during the big fair happening. It'd be crazy. But get our students free parking. And then we would run these shuttles every 15 minutes to take them to the building so they get to class. And then once they got out of class, the shelves would be timed to be there when the class ended, where there'd be 2 or 3 of them that could haul everybody that was getting out of class. So they said, okay, we'll try that. It looks like it might cost us 15 or 20,000 for salaries and gas and wear and tear. So that was a low cost commitment that they gave us. And it started off working great because people were getting delivered right to the front door. They didn't have to go searching around for parking spots, and everybody was showing up on time for class. About 2.5 weeks in, we find out that there's no security out at the fairgrounds when it's not conducting any kind of event. And so the students started reporting theft from their cars. The students were having problems maybe getting their car started, and there was nobody around to give them any help. If you ever have a car issue and you're on campus, security has all the stuff to jumpstart to help you get in a locked car, all that kind of stuff. But there was nothing like that available for our students out at the fairground. So people quit using it, and they started getting back into the mess of trying to find a parking spot. Then they started being late for class again. So my second semester class analyzed that data, and the control group still had the same number of parking spots, still had the same ballpark number of people on campus Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And so I said, we've got to come up with another alternative. That one, we tried it, it failed. We tried the scheduling, it failed. Let's try asking them to give us more parking. And so we went back out, we walked around, we found some deserted houses that were, drug, crack house type things. There were unsavory characters hanging around them, and it was trash in the yards and all that kind of stuff. And at the time, the city of Indianapolis had a program that they would give you that house if you would fix it or tear it down and make something better in its place. They would give you that plot of land. And so we went, it took 2 years for us to go through and get like about 6 houses, and they actually removed the houses and made it into parking lots. If you've been downtown, there's parking lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that was from that initiative that we went around and found enough space that we could put another parking spot lot there. So all is well for about a year. And then 2007, 2008, the housing crash occurred, and people started losing their jobs, their houses, their mortgages were all messed up because they got in houses that were way too expensive for them. And so the alternative was, if you came back to school, then the state would pay to retool you, and you could get discounts on tuition. They'd give you grants and stuff to help you get into a new career field. So just in Indianapolis, we had something like 29,000 students. And then we went from like 15 or 14,000 to 29,000 students coming to that next semester. And there wasn't room in the building even. It was standing room only, but there definitely was not parking for those 29,000 students. And so online was in its infancy, and there wasn't a lot of alternatives to take them off campus to do something like we are here with virtual. The technology and the mindset of the instructors, their mindset was, if you're not in my classroom, I can't teach you. And so we still had some growing pains to go through to get where we are today with this. But we went to the president again. We had this information about how many students now, and there's absolutely no parking for them. And it was about the time that Congresswoman Carson passed away, and the city wanted to do something to memorialize her. And so they got funding in the grant to build a parking garage downtown. It's got the library in it on the first floor. It's really nice. And I think it added somewhere around 300 or 400 parking spots. And then we got the Stouffer Hotel donated to us, and it had its own parking. So we absorbed some more parking there. And there was a hospital that had been out of business for 20 years that the state granted to us. And so we got the parking that was associated with that hospital right across the street from Ivy Tech downtown. It's now Fall Creek campus. So that took probably about 5 years to become reality, to have the parking that we got right now. So we still go through that same scenario when I'm teaching this class, either telling the story Or if we're at one of those campuses, we actually go through the process the same where we are now by collecting the number of parking spots, running with the enrollment, and analyzing if it's still working. And then we'll come back with improvements, or we'll show that the control phase is how many students are getting to class and how many of them are finishing the semester. And so real world situation, that's how we use this problem solving for DMAC. And so it gives you everything I just talked to you about, the technical terminology, but the story tells all the little sequences that we just went through. And it talks about measure being critical. And what the technology that we had prior to 2008 was ticky marks that we kept track of in Excel spreadsheets. And we didn't have this ability to do a repeatability or reproducibility until we had those parking garages. And basically what that's saying is, can we recreate that same scenario where everybody counts the number of available spaces and we find out what the enrollment is? And can we reproduce that same task each semester to make sure that we can find out if there's a consistency there, or we can find out if we keep missing how many parking spots are needed or how many people are enrolled. So we did this R&R study after we had all this data that was several years into it. So then we can find out, are we close or are we missing it by a mile? And so here's the two terms that come into play here. Is precision. Refers to the closeness of two or more measurements to each other. So if we had the number of parking spots, we didn't grow any after we got that parking garage built, but the enrollment was something that would move to where it would be a little bit different. So if they're very close, then it might be thought that the data is truly representative of the process or parts being measured. Yet this measurement by itself can't be sufficient. So if we had the enrollment, and we know it fluctuates from one semester to the other, and we had the parking, and so far they hadn't grew any more parking spots, half of that was pretty precision, and the other one was still a little bit off the mark. So then we look at accuracy. Accuracy is the proximity of the measurement result to the true value. It means that the data are indeed a true representative of what we're trying to measure. And so every year when we counted the parking spots, it was the same. So we had accuracy there because it came back to the same number of parking spots. Whereas the other end of the equation for enrollment, we could estimate and we could try to keep it within a parameter of, like, when it was 29,000 students, there was no estimating or parameters there. But when we got back to where we are, where it's about, 11 to 15, we can measure it to where it stays within that 12,500-ish kind of mark. So those two terms, you'll see those on your exam, on your quizzes. So it gives you the visual here of what poor accuracy and precision is. So nothing hits the dartboard. And then poor accuracy, you get two darts in the wrong place. They're real close to each other. And then when you got accuracy and precision, you got your bullseye. So this kind of is the chapter about DMAC. It's like measuring out the elements of a problem and how to work your way through it to come up with solutions and to come up with an improvement in it. So I want to take this time to thank the folks who are out here live. We started off, nobody was here. And so you can go back and listen to the first couple of minutes if you want to see what you might have missed. But one question I wanted to ask, while I got people that can give me a live response, I can put them on the spot here, is why do you think students are late for class? You want to give me a guesstimate? There's no wrong answer. Okay, this is voluntary, and they could have went to the bathroom or something, so I won't hold them up to the phone on that one. So let's take a look at our next chapter. And this is the SIPOC diagram. And so in that last scenario, when we were talking about the students, the faculty and the president and the campus facilities, those are our intricate parts of what was involved in the problem. Well, this one is a tool that we can use to necessitate the improvement that we were trying to pull off there. And so we're going to talk about this SIPOC diagram and the value stream map and processing maps in our meeting today. But let's look at this first section, which is SIPOC. It's especially useful in the beginning of a project where an overview is necessary, not only understand the dimensions of the process, also contemplate and analyze how to contribute to the organization's goals and objectives. So we had to get the big picture. This is how many parking spots you got. This is how many students you got. That was the big 10,000-foot picture of it. And then we can break it down into phases that go through defining and measuring and the problem solving. But we're headed towards the most important part, which is the efficiencies and any kind of quality improvements that are added to our situation. So anytime you've taken a management course, you hear that a manager's part is managing the inputs and the process to come up with quality outputs. There in the middle, the process, that's where all management and all improvements are thought to take place, because it'll be, we come up with a better machine, we trained our people to do the job better. All of that comes into play in the process. But what you find out when you get more in depth in management, that suppliers, if they give you something that is less than A grade product, then you're putting poor raw materials into the input. And so you're always going to have a less than perfect output, because you didn't go back to the raw materials and what kind of data, if we're talking about the parking situation, what kind of data that we had that we put into to determine how many people needed parking spots and how many there was. So you need that input, that supplier of the data or the supplier of the raw materials has got to be the first step. So now we got our inputs and we figured out what is important to make this process improvement. You do the process. Everybody's managing that, all hands on deck, and we're making sure that every step in getting to the goal is finished. And then when we look at the output, we say, okay, now we've got this, in our example, now we got all of this extra classes you can take on Monday and Friday. And then it goes to the customer. And remember, I told you nobody signed up for it. So it wasn't a successful project, or it wasn't a successful improvement if it did not help the end customer. And so the same thing happened when we went through this process and got the extra parking spots at the fairgrounds. It goes all the way through this process. We're saying, hey, look, we got another 1,200 parking spots. And the customer says, yeah, but I kind of liked having my stereo. Or I went in there, I had 4 tires and wheels, now only have 2. So it did not satisfy the customer. And that's the customer who starts that whole string moving, is we're trying to meet the customer's demands and their wants. So really, the savior for Ivy Tech was us catching up with reality and getting a lot of other opportunities to teach off campus. And so I was part of the development team to convert many classes to online. And when I took over as program chair for supply chain, that was job one, because I know what kind of schedule you folks have, is to make every one of our classes deliverable online. And so if you had a weird schedule, you went to work at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you didn't get off until 3 in the morning, you weren't any good to take a morning class, and you were at work in the evening. So it just couldn't work for you. But when we introduced online classes, we were able to satisfy more customers. And today, I think we had about 10 or 15% of people took online classes. Then the pandemic hit. And most universities, I'm talking about our big ones here, Purdue, IU, were not ready for that. They did not have the robust online system that Ivy Tech had. And so for us, it was just another day in the office or out of the office, because we already had courses that were formatted to teach you virtually like this, or to teach you strictly online. And so we never missed a beat. our enrollment dropped down because people were more concentrated about, hey, am I going to die? Or my kid's going to get sick? I got kids that are now at home trying to take classes virtually. There was a lot of things that were happening that put higher education in the back burner. But we're making a comeback. Now we are going on 3 years out of the pandemic, and enrollment starting to improve. But people got kind of spoiled to the notion of being able to take a course from home. I mean, I got 3 kids. I don't have to get them all cleaned up, dressed up, and take them to somewhere to be taken care of. Pay for that expense. Worry about, is the kid sick? Are they fighting? I should be there. And I don't have to try to get my schedule at work worked around me coming to campus. Now, granted, there is a premium for coming to campus, and it's your classmates, the interaction with them, the camaraderie, the friendships and stuff that you can have, the connections that you can network and get maybe a job opportunity, or you can find out something about what they did in college, and you can say, yeah, I think I might try one of those or do that. And you don't have the live interaction with your professor that you do in a live campus. It's different when we're making eye contact and we got body language, arms moving around and stuff. You tend to communicate better and you understand better. And it takes a lot of that away, even in this format where you can see me flailing around. Still, students are a little backwards about showing us their space, their face, and talking in a Zoom class. I'm fortunate enough that the Zoom classes I teach, about the first week, they're a little bit shy. I just did one last night, and I had 9 people that were helping me teach the class. They were telling us about what is happening in their work area, what happened to them in a situation that was relative to what we were talking about. So it does have it's the middle of the road. It's not face to face, but you still have an interaction there. And the online, you really have to be super disciplined to do well in that. And I'm talking my online section of this class. You almost have to say, okay, I'm in college on Tuesday night, whatever your schedule is, Wednesday, Thursday, from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, I'm going to work on my class. I'm going to read all my texts. I'm going to do all my homework. You have to be disciplined enough to put yourself in a classroom mindset and to put barriers between you and distractions like your animals and your kids and spouses and your bosses to do that. And that takes a lot, I mean, a lot of time management and self-discipline to do that. Some of you mastered that. And I remember the first graduation, we go to all the graduations. That's my favorite day of the year. And it's kind of job satisfaction because I get to see people that I met a year or 2 years ago finish that journey at Ivy Tech, get to shake their hand, congratulate them. They're walking out of there with a piece of paper that's going to add to their future. But I still remember the first graduation I went to, and I had never met in person half of my classes. So they were online and they didn't come to campus for anything. All their stuff was mailed to them or whatever. And it was a strange feeling. They knew who I was, but they'd never showed me their picture. I'd never heard their voice. And so they were introducing themselves to me like it's the first time we met for me. But they were like, oh, yeah, I had you in like 4 or 5 classes. I knew who they were by name when they called it. And that's the first time I ever got to see who that person was. So that was a little bit of a different experience for me. Like, damn, I could have had a closer relationship with those students had they come to my classes day one. But still, they got to the goalpost. They got to the graduation, and they were very happy with what they got from Ivy Tech. They got some quality training and some quality skills. So it worked out for the customer. So here's talking about different types of, they're doing this SIPOC. They put it in an Excel type of format. You don't have to do that. But they wanted to write out, who are my suppliers? And so they're talking about some kind of a problem they're working on. And so they say system information, employees, customers that use our systems, underwriters, if we got anything that's been copyrighted, And then brokers, people who actually go out and find who's going to buy our stuff or who's going to be enrolled in it. And then inputs, what things can make a difference on whether it's successful or not. We got rates, uh, their loads of work that they have to do, what their schedules look like, data, what kind of information we have on our customers to make sure we're giving them what they want, expectations, diagnostic reports, account information. So that's the inputs. So we had the good raw material from our supplier. Now we got the input. Now we're in the process. And so this process that we're talking about is review insurance coverage. So this is an insurance company that's trying to make sure that if I get a new child, that I've got insurance to cover them. If I change jobs and there's not enough insurance there, or if you're like me or an old geezer, you want to make sure that the mortgage gets paid off and that your kids get to college with life insurance. And so the process was review and insurance coverage. So our outputs are monthly renewals. People actually buy your product, updated report telling, how many policies are out there and what kind of new laws or new improvements can happen for their customers. And then they do eligibility analysis. It's a thing. We have an insurance program, if you weren't aware of that, Ivy Tech does, in the business School of Business. And it's 3 classes you take to learn about insurance to become an insurance agent. So it's a relatively short commitment to get the know-how to work in that industry. And what they do is say they're going to insure people that are from 25 to 60. They have to make sure that the mix is in there so that the younger customers who don't use the insurance as often, they're Superman, Supergirl, Superwoman, offset us crippled ass people that have to go in for all kinds of stuff. So there has to be a balance there, and that eligibility analysis is what they use to figure that out. And then, of course, documents, files, and then letters to tell people, about their process. And then our customers are coming back saying, well, who underwrites your insurance? Is it Joe's insurance company, or is it Nationwide, or is it Hartford? Or, they want to know, is it real? Is this insurance real? And customers want to see what the marketing is, if they're getting bombarded with TV commercials, radio ads, and pop-ups on their social media and stuff. And then the sales are concerned about making sure that they get the value for the product that they're purchasing. And then if they call in and say, hey, my wife has stopped working, I want to add her to my insurance, are they giving good customer client service? And is the broker making sure that they're dealing with, like my insurance agency can buy insurance from anybody? It's an independent broker. And so they're always looking for the best rates for, say, my boat or my fleet, my cars, my wife's and my daughter's car. They'll say, hey, if we can insure your house and your cars and your life, those packaged together, we can get you a better deal. And it's all from nationally rated insurances. And then the customer is the main concern, as being taken care of. If something happens, am I getting good claim support? Are they taking care of me? So this diagram is what we use to see what is the big picture and how we're going to make the process work. And it goes through and it talks about what I just gave you in hee-haw hillbilly version. But this is the one thing that's important. It does add clarity. Who are the suppliers? What are the inputs? What processes, steps are forwarded? What are the outputs of the process? And who are the true customers? And so if you have those things defined on this chart, it takes away a lot of the guesswork knowing who you're trying to make happy and who you have to go to make that happen. Okay, so let's take a look now at chapter 5, and this one's going to be pretty interesting because you have a project that's due that has you create a value stream map. And I have a special guest video of last semester, one of my students, they did this project, and I asked them, can I use yours as an example? So let me bring in what your downloadable here is, where it says template. Let me show you what I've done to make that project for you much more manageable and much easier. Is I fixed the template up the project is tracking all the steps in a process, and the assignment is to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And it doesn't have to be those two ingredients if you're allergic to peanut butter. It's whatever you have in your house. You can make it a butter and butter sandwich. You can make it a butter and butter cracker. That doesn't matter. It's the process that we're trying to track. And for those folks, I have two of you here that are in Plainfield. I'm bringing all the ingredients so we can do this in class, and everybody can record each other. So you can find everybody's going to have a different time and a different pace. So you're still getting the full experience of doing the project. I'm just trying to take some of the logistics out of it, where everything's there. We take class time, we do it, and then you can fill out this form. And so what is this? It basically, the format lets you put in the descriptions of the different steps of whatever the process is. And this one is making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so I come up with 22 steps when I made one. And so you're going to have this to enter in information from the video that you're making of you making the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so what my guest video person did is she took this form and she actually followed it like a script to do her video. And so she covered all these steps, and she found 3 steps that I forgot. And you'll find this interesting, which I'll add into my new and improved version of this value stream map. So this is all the steps in making that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Some of those steps don't add value. In other words, this is to make one peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So the project or the assignment is to measure out and list all these steps that you took creating this sandwich, and then how much time would it take to make the second sandwich. And so in this example, I got get your bread, get a plate, get a knife, get peanut butter, get jelly, open the peanut butter and jelly, open the jelly, open the bread, spread the peanut butter on the bread, spread the jelly on the bread, assemble the sandwich, cut the sandwich, put the sandwich in a Ziploc, close the peanut butter, close the jelly, close the bread, put away the peanut butter, put away the jelly, wash your dish, wash your knife, put away the dish, put away the knife. So this is a startup where you're getting all of the ingredients to make the sandwich, then you make it, then you put away all the stuff that you use to make the sandwich. So in her video, it took her 4 minutes and 30 seconds to go through all of these processes. So up here at the top, to tell how long it takes to make the second sandwich, you don't have to do a video of you making the second sandwich. You use this video stream map, and you're going to take out steps 1 through 8, because that's got you opening everything up, going again and open up. You don't have to do that again. It's like you're set up for a shift and you're running production. The first order that goes through takes longer because you had to set up your machine, get all your raw materials and everything in line to start the process. And then at the end, when you're putting away all of the things, steps 14 through 22, you're not going to do that on the second one. So we're only going to be measuring number 9, which is spread the peanut butter, number 10, which is spread the jelly, number 11, assemble the sandwich, number 12, cut the sandwich, number 13, put the sandwich in a Ziploc. That's it. So if you look at the seconds that it took to do that, we got 19 and 17, that's 36, and 3 is 39, 11 is 50, and 19 is 69 seconds. So it went from 4 minutes and 50 some seconds to 69 seconds to make the second sandwich. And so if we have it all mapped out like this, and this is really a plain and simple process, it's going to be easy for you to follow. It gives you the example that you can use for very extravagant processes that are very complex. This would list it out to where you would understand each one of the steps in that extensive process. And you could find out through process improvement, that's what this course is about, which one of these steps is a waste. Let's take that out. Well, why don't we put step 6 before step 5? You can start moving things around where it makes more streamlined sense. And that's what this whole stream map is about, is to explode that process and time each one of those different steps. Let's say that the process gets down to the middle and there's one machine and everything is waiting there because it took 10 or 15 seconds to get there, but this one machine takes 30 seconds to do one process. This isn't where you identify in this value stream map, we need a second machine there. So then the flow keeps going and there's not this backup at that one station that takes twice as long. We need two operators or two people that are doing something and putting this peanut butter, those are 19 seconds there. So we should have a second student always spreading peanut butter and another one always putting it in a Ziploc. And we could get that down to a 30-second process to make a sandwich. We'll see how that works live when we do this in the classroom. It's pretty interesting how some people are so meticulous about how they spread their peanut butter and their jelly. And I mean, it's just fun to watch. And somebody will bring in raisin bread because they want to have that instead of regular white bread, or they'll bring in whole wheat or sourdough or what have you. So the process is different for everybody that does this, but this is the way that you capture it. And then in class, we'll pull these up and we'll say, here's so-and-so's process. It took 3 minutes and 50 seconds. It was the fastest one in class. And let's figure out where the time was saved. And we can look at each step and see that they did a faster time on spreading the peanut butter. They just went dab and close it. Most of the guys do that, like they've never made a peanut butter sandwich before. But I had another mom that says, this is how you make a peanut butter sandwich. She schooled the heck out of me. First, you toast the bread so it doesn't bend when you're putting the peanut butter on it. And while the bread's still warm, the peanut butter will melt just a little bit when you're putting it on there. I mean, she was making my mouth water when she was making this peanut butter sandwich. And you spread it on both pieces. So you got 2 pieces of bread with peanut butter on. This traps the jelly from seeping through when you're trying to eat your sandwich. And so then she puts jelly on one side and closes it up. And she was right. Everybody there said, that's how I'm making my peanut butter jelly sandwiches from now on. So this will be available to you. It'll be in announcements, and I'll even attach it into our assignment. It'll not have any times in it. So when you go to do this, let's say that to move the bread took more than 3 seconds. It took 10 seconds. That's going to show up here in these little connector boxes here, that's shaped like a D. That's considered a delay. That's the process is named step 1, and the time it took to do it is considered a delay. And so anything you type up here for the amount of seconds, it shows up in these delay boxes. And so the reason they do that is I can take just a look back and see which one of those has got the highest numbers. Here's a 15. No, that's step 15. I think the biggest delay was spreading it, right? Let's see. In this table, it's easier to see it there. I had a 19 in spreading it. So that's the biggest delay. And then putting the sandwich together was 19. But actually I had somebody who went and washed their knife and their plate and all that stuff. And that took a minute just to do that. But the moral of the story is the value stream captures all the different steps in the process. And a process map, it does that too, but it may not time each one of those steps. It'll just list them out. So imagine a process map just having the squares and not the delay in the middle of each one of them. But this is a better tool because now I can find out what's taking the most time. Should I have 2 people or 2 machines doing that? So I can cut down the time on the process, thus improving the process. Okay, as promised, I'm going to bring our video over. Let's see if I can get it to work out. You may not hear sound. I don't know what's going on with how I transmit here, but here's last semester's prize winner for the best video. Even if you can't hear, you can watch the steps that she's taken. And that was her value stream map. So the actual times from her recording, she put in there. Now watch her look down and read the value stream map to tell what to do next. So she doesn't miss any of the steps. Right now she went to get the bread. She got a plate out. She got a knife. She says she's going after peanut butter if you can't hear. You can see the shadows and everything.
Yeah, we can't hear her.
But... yeah, well, she's going over the cabinet. She's searching drastically for the peanut butter. She finds it. And then she reads it and it says, get the jelly. And so let's see if I can pull this over where you can see the value map at the same time. So she's following that script that I gave you guys for an example to get each one of those steps in sequence So she can find out how many seconds it took to do each one of those. So she's pretty smart. She figured it out that value map, we want to follow that same process so we can time it in sequence with what I gave you for an example. And shortly, she's going to start finding out steps that I forgot. So we can key in on that because we got a live or recorded student that's going through the process here. See, I already forgot a step. They opened the bag. I didn't say to take the bread out of the bag. Saying she's almost out of peanut butter. That looked like a pretty nice gob. And let's see if I can roll it up where you can see her actually doing the work on the sandwich. There you go. Yes, that's the greatest invention in the world, the squeezed jelly. You know, they had squeezed peanut butter. It just doesn't come out as easy as jelly does.
Yeah, because it's thicker.
Yeah, and they have peanut butter and jelly mixed. You know, you can just be lazy as heck and squeeze one bottle.
Yeah, we have a jar at home that's peanut butter and jelly together.
So she assembled the sandwich. Now she's cutting the sandwich. And now she's going to put it in a Ziploc bag. She said, I forgot a step. I did not tell you to get the Ziploc bag out. So she added another step in there that wasn't in the value stream. It'd take all this time that she took to go find that and put it in there. It'd be in part of the setup. So now she's putting the sandwich in the Ziploc. And so if you were doing this as a business and making sandwiches, that's one product finished. And so now it's at the end of the day, you've made 100 peanut butter sandwiches. You're going through your clothes, you're putting away, you're closing them and closing the bread. I mean, I thought I had everything covered until she got me on the Ziploc and pulling the bread out. So she said she's going to go put her peanut butter away. Some people put it in the refrigerator. They're saying, why would you have an open jar of peanut butter that's 3 months old? Try spreading refrigerated peanut butter. It's zero fun. So she put the jelly away, she said. Now she's putting the bread away. I didn't tell her to put the bread away, or she didn't. So it was washed plate. She's going to go throw the paper plate away. It's part of the cleanup process at the end of the shift, so she can find the time in that. Now she's going to wash this knife, and she really scrubs this. I think she's spraying Windex on it, so she's trying to poison somebody. I don't know. That could be some kind of a green, simply green or something she's spraying on. She is scrubbing the heck out of that knife. Still, I hear running water, and she's still working on it there. This added, what, 25 seconds to the process, washing the knife. Okay, she got that booger clean. She's drying it off. Put away the knife. So I hear a drawer opening. She's putting the knife back in her silverware drawer. Well, maybe she's shining it first. Because the clock's still running. All right. So that's what the videos look like. And so as she was doing each one of those steps, at the bottom, that time tells you, okay, 19 seconds in, what has she got done? Then she does the next step, and it's like 29 seconds. So she knows it was 10 seconds to do that step. And so you use this video to get the time that goes in those delay blocks for each one of the steps after you've recorded it. Like I say, yours is going to be different than hers. It was 4 minutes and 41 seconds, but she washed the hell out of that knife. And yours may not be that long. But she recorded all that. Let's see what she said for washing the knife. 17 seconds. I'd probably go back and time that just to see how close she was to that, being 17 seconds. But this is how you isolate the important parts to do the process again. So that's your assignment for 100 points, is to build a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, put the times in after watching the recording, and then tell me how long it would take to do steps 9 through 13. And you'll find out that it only took you 30, 40, 50, maybe a minute to make a sandwich. Then that can tell you in a shift how many peanut butter sandwiches you could expect to have made. And so that's another reason they use these value stream methods to find out what the capacity is. Okay.
You said that we're gonna do this in class, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
So this part, I'll have a paper version of it with nothing filled in for the times. And you can actually pencil whip the times from looking at your recording and turn it in right then. You don't have to email it to me or anything.
Okay.
So start to finish, you'll have that project done in class. Whereas our folks that are out online, they have to do this in their home somewhere. And every day you're going to eat a sandwich of some kind. So like I said, it didn't have to be peanut butter and jelly. This is just what the assignment was. Okay, so let me get this out of the way and we will return to our previous conversation about value stream processes. And it's explaining how it's doing some type of a process for a document to identify where there needs improvement. So this is showing this one line of that map that we had, and it's got proven order. There's a delay. How long did it take to approve that order? Credit check. How long did it take to do the credit check? Assemble the order. How long did it take to assemble the order? Pack it and ship it. How long did it take to do that? So they use it as a single process here to find out, okay, it takes us 4 times longer to assemble it than it does to do anything else. And so once you start assembling, does it really, you may not have to approve the order until you make 1,000 of them. You may not have to do a credit check until you change customers. So these parts of that value stream aren't always what we are going to focus on. And it breaks down that same information that I just gave you in these other steps. And this following an order, she did that to the numbers. She followed the order that was in that processing map that I made her, so she could capture the time on each one of those steps. So consider just the productive or value-added activities, and they were talking about these steps here. There's non-value-added activities. So assume it takes 10 minutes to approve the average order, 20 minutes to approve the credit, 60 minutes to assemble the items, and 20 minutes to pack it and ship it. The total value-added time is 110 minutes. If orders are shipped in 4 days and each workday is 8 hours or 480 minutes, then the value-added work, which takes only 110 minutes, is a small part of the 1,920 minutes, 4 days, that it takes before the order is sent on its way. So actually making it and getting it packed and ready to go took 110 minutes, but they're saying it's taken 480 minutes for that process to happen. So where is the stuff setting? So you probably got raw materials that are waiting to come in, and you're waiting until you got the whole order finished before you do the shipping into a truck or a train or a plane or whatever. So it says, in fact, the value added work for this example is only 6% of the time to make the order. So we have 94% of the time it's non-value. That's considered waste. So we could either take it out of a 4-day cycle and make it a 1 day. It only takes 110 minutes. Or we could have other items that are going on in those other 3 days or 2 days to expand the ability of whatever this resource is. So it says, manage this challenge is to redesign the process in a way that eliminate as much of the delay as possible. And again, it's re-emphasizing that it's just the value, like the peanut butter sandwich example. She has 4 minutes and 56 seconds on her video, and we counted out 1 minute and 9 seconds to put the sandwich together. So 3.5 minutes or somewhere else being spent washing knives and such, that they're not value added. They didn't help make that next sandwich. And some of these delays it talks about here, according to Jay Arthur, author of Lean Six Sigma Demystified, I've read that book, organizations are not nearly as attentive to these problems as we might expect. Delays, he explains, can account for 90% of the processing time for many products and services. We just saw that in the example. Okay, this may be a bit of an exaggeration, so let's be much more conservative. Even if the delays account for only half of the processing time, the potential benefit for applying the principles of lean can provide significant benefits to the organization in cost savings and better customer service. So let's say I sent a part to be rebuilt. It's a component that's got, like say, a starter or something that can rebuild them. And it's half the price of a new one. And so I take my, I can go right down to the auto parts and buy a brand new one and spend probably $300, $400. If I have this rebuilt, it's $50. I'm thinking it says it can have it done in 2 days. I can wait 2 days to save $300. And so I give it to the people to have them rebuild it. Well, it turns out it takes 3 weeks when they finally give it back to me. I'm not happy because by now I went out and bought another starter because I had to have transportation for 3 weeks. And now I have this extra used starter that is 50 some bucks, but it's sitting on a shelf somewhere. It's a waste to me. And I'm not, as a customer, I'm not happy because they did not get their process. They didn't get the delays out of it to deliver when promised. So that was value stream. This is like a process map that says, here's the first thing we do, and here's the people that are involved in it. Let me see if I can make this bigger. I can't figure it out. Where is it? There. Not much, but it tells about customers, sales, packing, other. And so here's the people that are doing something. Well, once they get that done, what else they got to do with the process? Nothing. We look at sales and they have like 4 steps to do, which looks like the most steps on here maybe. And then we got packing, they just got 2 steps. And these others, which need to have some type of a label on them so we know what is taking up all this time. There's 1, 2, 3 different processing steps here in the other that are holding up this thing being finished. So some processing maps, they seldom have ever seen the one that said other. It actually identifies, it goes to painting, it goes to cutting, it goes to welding. It'll tell where that process has gone to a different section in the plant, and that it's like step 4 in the finished product. We're waiting on that process to work its way through, so we'll have a finished product. Okay. Yes. That somebody was saying something? Sorry. Oh, that was him saying. I was stepping on the guy who was giving the presentation. Okay, so that's our 3 chapters for today. And I'm sorry we couldn't make the trip over there to Plainfield to have this live, but those roads look pretty bad. And it's 1 o'clock, which is considerably early for when you usually get finished, because we have questions and we try to do other activities in the class. But this is the subject matter that we were going to cover and discuss in class. So now you're up to date on, be ready to hit it next week. So what is going on next week? Let's take a look. Our process map will be part of your assignment that's later in the semester, and we'll take a look at that. Let's see if I can get back to the home. I don't need you guys to see the grade book. Okay, so let's take a look at when that's happening, when you have to have that DSM. Because if you want to do this at home today, make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and record it, all of that stuff that you need, the map is in there already. So if we look at when that's due, let's look at assignments. I think it's week 6. Process map. DSM is due November. What? November? Oh, I'm looking at last semester. Whoo. Okay, so I need to pull our class up. I pulled up that class from last semester to show you her finished product. This will help.
I got have I been transferred yet? Because I still haven't been able to do anything.
I'm sorry about that. I saw that you became active and then you went inactive again. And I can show you after I stop recording the conversations happening to fix that so it doesn't happen to you anymore. But okay. I sent you a separate invitation because I knew you couldn't see the class. And I'm
Yeah.
glad you're able to join us today.
Yeah.
So let me show when that assignment's due and what's due next week, and they'll stop recording, and we
Okay.
will we'll work on that issue. So
All
next week we've got the 7 wastes. That's very interesting. It's in like any process. There's 7 things you can trim wasted time and wasted money. We're going to go over the 5S, and I'll give you an example like I did this week of a 5S student project and let you see how fun that is. And then we're going to do chapter 8, which is Children's Hospital. And it talks about how they can get the most out of an MRI machine. So it's an interesting case. So we have those 3 chapters that are up for next week. And that's where I'm going to call it a stop on the recording, and we'll see you guys next week. I'm going to stay on here and answer questions before we leave.